Morning. Welcome all anonymous participants to this lecture. So, we are learning about GIS, and one of the important parameter or one of the important component is data. So, how we input data into GIS and how we can do further correction and the editing so that we can do our project, we can extract information. So first thing is about whenever you start any GIS course or GIS project, first thing is about handling data. And important questions which comes to the mind of reader and the project is what will be my data inputs, what and how I can do processing. So in this lecture, we are going to learn about what are the different kind of sources from where you get the GIS data. So geographical information system, as we know, it is a digital system, so data must be digital format, and that too comply with the GIS data models that you might have already learned in the previous classes, right? So we have a data, and then we have to make it GIS ready so that we can use in GIS. So we just see before we move further into lecture, I wanted to apprise you of, and you should be able to appreciate how much this technology has progressed. So if you see around 40-50 years back, how map or spatial data used to be collected. So spatial data, geography or maps is not the new subject. This has been done by mankind for a long period. And if you see earlier, we used to use plane table, yeah, plane table, then theodolites, instruments like that, and telescope. So you can see in this figure, the surveyor is standing in the river side and trying to map some feature. So that was the reality, because you are limited to your vision. So if you are visually seeing from telescope, so if something is not visible, you need to go near to that. So there may be very tricky situation where only feasible places may be places like this. So that is how data used to be collected, right? Then plane map used to be created. Then this map is further, so the data collected by surveyor by using his special pencil and pen, and further refined in the back office and finally printed. So from there, maybe last 20-30 years, we have you say disruptive technologies which enabled every field with the faster and quicker data acquisition system. So same with the spatial data. So we have earlier days we used to have aerial photographs uh, before the satellite based data acquisition become popular. And in the aerial photograph, if you can see, so camera is mounted on a aircraft, and from there data is captured. Then we have modern tablets, instruments, and all the sophisticated software required for GIS data collection is inbuilt into tablets. And as the computing speed and memories become more affordable and efficient, miniaturized, you can see much smaller devices nowadays. So directly you can go to the field and collect data. And then like earlier, when you used to have a approach where you actually go to a table, drawing table, or office where you actually draw, further correct it on the paper and pencil or pen. Now you can do everything in computer. So heads, the earlier approach we call such heads down approach, because there is a large tables where you actually see below and do lot of manual activity. Now it's called heads up approach, where you can use computer for doing that. So let's move to our main topic, that is what are going to be inputs and sources for GIS. So for the newbie, it's always a challenge how to start with. So for any project, we should know what kind of input we want. Then once you know, okay, this kind of input I want or this kind of data I want, what can be the sources, right? So here I am trying to explain based on the whole process. So one way of collecting data is manually digitizing from image or map, right? So it means there is no digital data available, but now because in GIS if you want to use, you need to digitize it. So you need to manually digitize, and from, if you don't have the digital data, so you have paper based maps, or you have images like aerial images taken non digitally, right? It is not far away, like 15 years back. The negatives, the camera with reels are very common. So the same technology has been used for taking aerial images. So you may have aerial images which are not in digital form, which is just a printed of after developing the negatives, or you can have a paper-based maps which are designed much earlier. And it's not about only technology limitations. Suppose you want to study some process about 1600 or 1700, right? So that during that year you don't have digital technology, so, and we cannot create digital map now by doing survey there, because in that way we are not able to get the actual information. So actual information is laid down in the museums, library, in terms of the paper maps. So that paper maps you need to bring to GIS and manually digitize. So what can be source? One can be manually drawn maps. Toposheet is a good example, right? Then there can be legal records, right? Legal records is like Khasra map or other maps which basically tells about the entitlement of a land or property. Then another way can be, there may be survey done by a surveyor and he has recorded coordinate in a tabular form, but offline, right? So tabular form, you have XY for some locations, and their source, as we discussed, as a aerial photographs. So one example which I was talking about is the manually drawn maps. So good example is Toposheets, popularly known as also as local maps. So Toposheets have a lot of information about an area, right? So they have been developed manually based on the coordinate survey, and then they are finally refined and printed. So these Toposheets, if you can see here, they have multiple things. So one thing is these lines, the concentric lines or the lines. These lines are called contour. Contour lines are those lines which join the equal height points. So if you guys see here 30, so this is the all the places below joining here is 30, 20, 15. So as you move further, you can see that the depth is increasing or height is decreasing. Same with here. So these are the contours, and you also have a lot of symbols for each based on the legend. You can further interpret what it is. Similarly, I'm talking about legal records, right? They are like Khasra map others. So taking that as a reference, we need to manually draw. How to draw it, we will further learn in the further as we move forward in the today's class. Coordinates list is fairly simple. You know the XY coordinate of different points, and that you need to import into GIS. And aerial photographs. So mostly aerial photographs are not georeferenced, in the sense these photographs is a normal file coordinate, so that we need to connect with the geo coordinates. And second way can be, you have directly coordinate measurement from the field, and these coordinates are directly coming as a either digital or non-digital form. So you direct have coordinate surveying. So coordinate surveying is like you use total station, or you use theodolite, or you use leveling instruments to calculate the heights and the XY, and that is recorded. Similarly, GPS is one common example, global positioning system, or in general you can say GNSS. These they provide you coordinates, and that coordinate you use as an input for your GIS. Right. Another way is image data. So when I say image here, I'm talking about digital images. So you can directly use that images, but only problem with the images have the DN values, right? So that DN value doesn't tell about actual feature. So we in maps we are mapping features like buildings, roads, or land use, land cover. So we that information is not directly coming from satellite. Satellite only give you digital number or the reflectance value, and from there you generally there is a process which is called classification. Basically you assign each pixel a class, or our case a feature type. So this feature type or feature can be a road, can be a building, or can be a grassland, or can be a agricultural land. So that process is called classification. Again, you can have an expert user who can see each pixels based on its reflectance in different bands. He can decide, okay, this pixel belong to this class, this pixel belong to this class. So that is called manual classification, right? All modern GIS and the non and remote sensing software provide you tools to manually digitize data. Another one is called automated classification, where basically it can be again supervised or unsupervised. So mostly supervised classification, what you do is you choose some pixels for each class and then feed that into computer. Computer will calculate, okay, based on your samples which you have provided for each class, this is the typical signature of each class, and it will automatically, the algorithm will run over a whole image and classify each pixel into out of the given classes. And once the classification is done, then actually you can import into GIS for further processing. And sometime you may want to directly use raster into direct as a source. So so for image data in GIS, most of the time you will be using after classification images, and sometime it may require that like a digital elevation model where you directly want to input the raster data, right? So from suppose you have a topo sheet, so you can directly digitize over it. This is what I was talking about, field measurement, coordinate surveying. So surveyor can collect from GPS or instrument like this, which is like total station, from because he knows the location of current place, and from the electronic distance measuring device he can calculate the target object distance, and based on the distance and angle he can calculate the position of the target. So this is also called coordinate surveying. So this can be one of the source. So as a GIS user, many of you may not need to collect this data, but you should be aware of the source and which format data you will get from these instruments. So the most modern day total station and other digital instrument directly give in data in digital form. So there is less a headache in importing into GIS. So the satellite and aerial imagery, so image data as we discussed comes as a form of digital values, and these digital numbers, they generally reflects the reflectance in different bands, different frequencies. So that can further be used and after processing, after classification or after manual processing, you can convert them into vector data, and that vector data can be inputted into GIS. It can be point, line, or polygon, right? So now comes how to do that. So suppose I have a topo sheet, how I can do this activity. So two important things. So if you don't have a data in digital form, you need to convert into digital form, and for that two important instruments are, these are called scanners and digitizers. So left side we have scanners, right side we have a digitizer. So if you see in the top, this is called heads down approach, where while digitizing you put your paper on a table, and on top of that there is an instrument. Based on that you can record different features, point, line, or polygon. And below one is the simple desktop, which is very common now, and this approach is called heads up approach, where you do digitization. But before doing that we need to scan. So what is a scanner? So if you see, scanner is a special instrument which convert any paper based information is to an image. So if you have drawn something, you have drawn maps, you have printed maps, or you have hand drawn writing, when you put into scanner, it become the output of the scanner, output will be a image, right? So as you can see, we have two types of scanners here. One is called drum scanner, another one is called flat bed design. So drum scanner is, as you can see here, these are generally used for highly calibrated map scanning, which have long drum and you surround the map into the drum, and drum will rotate. As the drum rotates, your scanner will scanner have a mechanism where it basically take a photograph of the paper which is kept there, and that data is converted into digital image and sent to the computer or any digital device connected with the scanner. So this is called drum scanner. And flatbed scanner, this is very common in all office and home uses. So this have a flat bed, a glass like thing. On top of that you put a paper. So generally it comes with the A4 or A3 size, but drum scanner you can have any size from A0 to A3, anyone. And on top of that you put a paper, and then you close the lid and you scan it, right? So this is very important if you have a legacy data which you want to convert to digital format. So similar to any input device, starting from mouse to keyboard, we should have some quality parameters for scanners, right? And the quality parameter for this scanner is called, scanners are called, generally used as a DPI, dots per inch. And this is similar to most of the display devices also being qualities characterized by the DPI. So DPI just tells you about how many dots are there per inch. So means if I scan a map and I get an output, so for each inch of the actual physical map or physical paper, how many pixels will be there in my final output. So interesting about most of the display devices, you might have seen there is a scope for changing the resolution. Same way, scanner also, while scanning, you can decide what is the optimal dot per inch. But of course, as per the manufacturing, the maximum value is fixed, but minimum is not fixed. So you can change it to any value, and by doing that, actually you save a lot of time and lot of space. So if you have a less DPI, you will have less memory usage. So suppose I have a map, as we discussed, you use a scanner, then you digitize it. So for scanning you set a DPI, and that as you discussed, this DPI settings can be guided by using the minimum mapping unit while creating that map. Then you scan the map, right? Scanning is done as per our DPI setting, that then you get an image, right? Or sometime you are directly getting image. In that way, first job is done. Then your image is not referenced with the ground coordinates, right? So if you click on any places in the image, you will get a arbitrary values, then it means it is not georeference. And also there is a way to check if it is a ground coordinates. You can refer with the other maps and you can see if it is overlay with that. So if it's not georeferenced, you need to georeference it. So this process of georeferencing required to collect the ground coordinate points. It means you should have a control point. So within image you should choose the prominent points, say 4, 5, 6 or 10 points, prominent points which actually you can identify on the ground. So by going into the ground or by browsing into any high resolution satellite image, you can pinpoint where is there the control points which you have identified in the map, what is the ground coordinate of that. And these ground coordinates you need to collect, because based on these ground coordinates, so now we have two coordinates. One is the map image coordinate, which is basically numbers, and another one is the ground coordinate which you collect from the ground. So now we have set up say 4 or 6 or 10 points where one side we have the ground coordinates, another side we have the image coordinates. So because now we have these two, so I can create a matrix transformation. I can create a function which basically translate from the image coordinate to the ground coordinates. And once I get that parameters or the matrix transformation parameters or the transformation matrix which can convert your ground coordinate, sorry, image coordinate into ground coordinate, I can convert this into a, so I can apply this whole transformation to entire image, and then the output image will be georeferenced. So now for every array place in the image you will get the ground coordinate. This is very much required because in GIS we are talking about earth, so we are going to use lot of sources, and only one thing which can connect everything is the coordinates. So it is must that your all images are georeferenced, and that georeferencing process, as we discussed, is basically you need to choose the control points, and control points should be distributed across image, and they should be a prominent features. Next one is discussed, you digitize control form, then you transform image into ground coordinates. Then once you convert image to known coordinate system, we call registering or georeferencing, then you can actually digitize each feature's boundary. So if you have a building, so you can start making a polygons along the boundaries of a building, if you can see it. If you have you want to digitize lake, you can digitize along the lake. And again, while digitization, most of the modern GIS software, we have two options: streaming option or point mode option, right? So this is a simple example where you can see how if you scan a linear feature, so this is like a linear feature going here and here, so this is how it will look. Because of the pixels, boundary may not be smooth, so there will be multiple pixels. But as we know in vector, if you are talking about line don't have any width, right? If you really want to digitize the line, then you can digitize along the center of this, and one line will be created with the branches, right? This example is a hypothetical image how I can digitize. So before digitization, this is the scanned one, and let's say different color represent different classes, and you want to digitize as a polygon. So what you can do is along the boundary of this point, yellow, you can draw, right? You can draw like this, and you can close again. So this is how after digitization it will look like this. Similarly, green one, I can draw a line around the boundary around the green one and around the red one. So I get three features, right? So what I have shown you here is the manual digitization, and what we are discussing here is when you want to digitize the boundaries. So there is two ways: one is stream and point, that we'll discuss later. Then another way, you can do computer to do this task for you automatically. So if computer is doing automatically, then it's called automatic digitization, and if you are doing manually by using mouse or any other inputting device, it's called a manual digitization. So we now will discuss further in detail how this digitization actually take place in GIS. So we are theoretically we understood now that if you want to import any non-digital data or non-vector data into GIS, the first thing is you need to check is georeferenced or not, and once it's georeferenced, you want to make the input, and that input process is called digitizing. So manual digitizing, if you want to create, so mostly you will create lines, points, then joining points will become line, and if you have a line which actually join back to the same point, then it become a polygon. So some concept which you need to understand while digitizing is the starting and end point of any feature is called nodes. So this is a node, this is a node. So from the node, from here to here, you have one line. Then from this node to this node, you have another one. So nodes are end of a line, and you can see here this is called vertices. So all vertices, so see, as we understand in geometry, all vertices are not node. Node are only those which are either at the start or end of a feature, and intermediate vertices are called simply vertices here. So here one vertex, two vertices, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we have one node here and one node here. So basically node define the boundaries, and intermediate vertices basically define the shape of a linear feature. So I can have a line with one line, single line with two endpoints, but basically nodes. But it can have multiple line segments, right? So based on these line segments, for defined each line segment, you will have you use different vertices. So nodes define the bond and vertices define the shape, right? So now if you are digitizing, uh, what kind of error can come? So what will happen is, as we discussed, either you can use the stream mode, where as you any place where wherever you move your cursor, right? Wherever you move your cursor, automatic line is getting created unless you press a special button like right click or double click. Another one is called point method, where basically you click on one point. Suppose I want to digitize, I click here, then I click here. So automatically these 2 points are joined. Then this is called as a point method. And a streaming method means I just simply need to move it like this, top to bottom, automatically linear feature is being created, and whenever I join anything, the feature will be created. So stream mode is like when you draw a painting or do a drawing. So it's a more of artistic way where you can have a good control on your hands, and so that you can draw any feature without clicking. So very less clicking required. But in point mode, wherever you want to change the shape, you need to click. So each consequent clicks will create a new vertex, and that will be joined with the previous one. Now what happens is, there are a lot of common errors which can happen while manually digitizing, that we need to understand, so that we can either avoid it by taking care of these kind of errors, or we can use some approach where these kind of errors are automatically removed. We will discuss both. So one kind of error is, suppose you are digitizing and you need to join this your node, so your line should end at the some another line, so you should be joining here, but you stopped before that. So in a computer you may see that high resolution images, it is hard to exactly go up to the line. So if you cannot go up to the line, you reach up to here also, then also it is called undershoot, because you have not reached the target. Another is called overshoot, basically where you have reached the target but you crossed it. So this distance, again this type of error is called overshoot, right? So similarly, if you are digitizing a polygon, so polygon should close, but in place of closing, you have one edge coming out of the polygon. So this is called dangling node. So this node here is called dangling node. This is unnecessary. So point to understand here is, there are lot of many kind of features available in the ground. So there can be actual situation where from one node of the polygon another line is coming up, and there can be situation actually the feature is not there, but due to digitization error, manual digitization error, this no edge has been created, or no, this new node has been created. Both need to be taken care. As we understand, GIS consists of both spatial and non-spatial data. So while digitizing, another responsibility is, once you draw the geometry, you need to provide its non-spatial data like label. So what will be the name of the polygon, what will be the name of the points, what will be these kind of thing, non-spatial data also you need to enter. So sometime you may miss it. So that also give an error, because you miss it entering it. And similarly, if two lines are crossing, if they are really crossing, there should be a line crossing. So one vertices or node should be there at the cross. So what happen in GIS, if you don't have like this, so you get confused, either so like if I have a under bridge, so it means a railway track, below that one road is going. So if you don't create node, it means they are not intersecting. And if you create node, it means they are actually a junction. So GIS, as we are drawing on 2D, we don't understand what actually happening. But if you actually this process, so GIS allow you to cross two lines without having any intermediate node. So if it is allowed, you need to be careful that it means that though they are crossing in the same location, but they are not intersecting. So there can be difference in the Z. But if you are want to have a crossroad where you want to show the roads are joined, so there should be some node here. So that can be missing while digitizing. So that also we can take care. Right? So we see example here. I am digitizing based on this. So you can see that roads are well digitized here, here, here. But if you can see here in the yellow, even red marks here and this, these two features are not matching with any overlaying feature. So this is some mistake happened by the digitizer, and while digitizing he made how too much zoomed out or zoomed in, but these two features have some problem. So now one digitization is done, then after inspection you find out that there is an error. Now how I can correct this error? Right? One simple one is, what is an error feature, you just delete it. So this one we have deleted. So we are not able to reference it, so we just deleted it, and if we require we can digitize further. So one way of manual editing. So digitization is done. Once already features are there, second process is called editing. So editing is mostly done to correct it. So first you digitize the road, then further details if you want to add, you call it editing. So while editing, one thing is select this feature and delete it. So in output you don't have this feature, so still only one error is removed. Second one is very interesting, where for this I have different nodes, vertices, right? So you select that and start editing. So now all the vertices of this line boundary is highlighted. So now you can move individual vertices to the corresponding point. Suppose this feature belong to the boundary of the forest, so I can move these vertices nearest to the forest boundary. So once I move these all vertices, now my shape looks similar with the background. This is one way, but many times it may happen that you don't have sufficient vertices to represent this shape. So in that case you can add new vertices in the line and put it to the boundary. So you can see here we have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 here. Here if you say we have 8. So we have added one more vertices so that it actually fits into the shape. So you can any edge you can select, and each edge consists of one start and one end node, and in between lot of vertices. So as we discussed, vertices define the shape. So you can move these vertices up and down and move any place so that the shape of edge is matching with the required one. So in this way also we can correct it. Right. So we have seen two kind of editing. One is by removing, another is by editing the vertices locations. Now we are talking about one important feature which GIS provide. So far we discussed what are the manual error which can creep in into a GIS project, and also saw how we can correct this manually. But now we are discussing about how we can use software functionality so that these kind of errors can be removed. So snapping is very important one. So if you are using QGIS, ArcGIS, or any GIS software, modern GIS software, you have option for snapping. Right? So one is called a line snapping. It means whenever you are creating a new vertex, and if there is a line nearby, so automatically your vertex will be joined to that line. And how much nearby I should be joined, that is defined by the tolerance. If suppose I say there is a 10 pixel tolerance, so whenever I move near to 10 pixel distance from any line, automatically my cursor will be shifted to the line, and this shifting is called snapping. So whenever I go near to the line, I will be snapped to the line. So this snapping tolerance you can keep, and based on your project requirement, it will snap to the line. So the problem of overshooting and undershooting will not come if you define a proper tolerance, so that while digitizing automatically you join with the nearby line. This is called line snapping. Another one is called point snapping, basically where points which fall within a specified distance of each other. It means earlier when I create a vertices, I am snapping with the line. Now I am creating another point, and this point will join with another point nearby. So suppose this is my threshold distance. So this point I want to create, so threshold distance is up to here, so it will not create another duplicate point, but it will snap to this point. This slide gives you, show you example how you can use snapping. So this kind of problem like undershoots, right? Undershoots, overshoot. If you are using the proper snapping tolerance, so because my tolerance is suppose this radius, it can be in pixel or it can be map distance. Suppose I say 5-meter radius. So if there is a line in the 5-meter radius, it will join. But here if you can see, in the 5-meter radius there is no line and no point, so it will not join because this is beyond the tolerance. Similarly here overshoot is avoided, undershoot is avoided, and here also we are doing point snapping so that duplicate points or overshooting, undershooting is not there. So lot of errors can be reduced if you use the proper snapping option. First thing is enable the snapping. Second thing, choose what kind of snapping you want, line snapping or point snapping. Then choose what kind of tolerance you expect in your project. So it will reduce lot of digitization error. Another one is suppose you digitize like this, too few vertices. So your shape, while it should be a curvilinear shape, it is looking like a group of straight lines. So what you can do, you can increase the density of the vertices so that it become a smooth point. But as you increase the vertices density, it may take more time to digitize. At the same time, if you increase too much, it is a lot of memory and time wastage. So you need to optimize how much distance you want between vertices. But if you put a snapping tolerance, so you cannot create a duplicate point within that range. So that again help you in digitizing. Right? So far we had saw about manual digitization where we are actually digitizing it. Now let's see how we can do automation. So there is a lot of ways by which we can do automation. Like I was talking about satellite image, where you can classify that image, right? Classify that image into different classes, and based on the classes, again there is a process which convert raster to vector. Automatically polygons can be created without need to digitize when things are very simple. But many times, suppose you are digitizing road, so there is one highway and there are a lot of another roads joining together. So software may not know in which way from the junction should I go left for to take the same highway, or should I go right. So that can create a problem, right? So and second thing is, if you are scanned and the map is very much clean, right? Clean means they don't have any noise and every feature is clearly visible. So automatically we can use modern image processing softwares, so automatically digitize things. But as we move further discuss, mostly for linear feature digitization, then lot of editing tasks need to be done if you are using the automated scanner. Suppose you have classified them as a road, so but still road have a lot of pixels. So now I need to do the thinning because I have to create a linear feature. So and I have to remove some unwanted error coming out of the automated digitization. So automated digitization is still not much popular except in the image classification. Other places where you have paper-based map, so automated scanning and automated digitization not much popular because it requires significant editing and it's hard to find very clean maps of the ancient maps. So generally, suppose I have automatically out of these whole pixels, I have classified this is the road, but I have to create a line. So line cannot have so many pixels, so I had to do the thinning. So now I have choose the thinning. So after thinning, you have each vertices belong to one point or one word. What you say, the width of the line is 1 pixel. Then you convert in raster, Now you calculate the center of each cell and join this cell to make a smooth line. So this whole process need to be done either manually and automatically. If you're doing automatically, so after before thinning, this is the what you will get, and after that you have to do thinning and the smoothing so that you get a line as required by you. And there are also semi-automated approach where half of the work is done by the automation and rest of the editing tasks you need to do. But generally digitization most efficient one is the human perception, because still the most efficient pattern recognition system is a human eye, so it is easier for human to digitize with minimum error, right? So far we discussed about how we can digitize if it is a map. Now another kind of sources are like direct vector sources, means you have a point line polygon coming from the Excel sheet or ASCII file or GPS files which are directly giving as a points, so it can be directly imported. You have satellite image which is already geocoded, so no further geocoding is required, so you can directly import it, right? And there is output of image classification as we discussed. So you classify each image with some pixels, then there is option for raster to vector conversion where you can convert this each class's boundary into a polygon, and that can be after vectorization can be inputted into GIS. So I just summarized the whole part how you do digitization. For digitization is required when you don't have a hard coded you don't have a digital information, like you don't have point line polygons which you want to extract. So you want to extract from a paper based map, so then you have to georeference. And but if you have a source like this geocoded satellite image, you can directly import, and on top of that you can create the data. Once digitization is done, you can create either a stream or point mode. As we discussed, stream mode means you don't need to click, and point mode you need to click. And once digitized, you do finally editing. Editing is mostly generally used to more refine the digitization process and also remove the errors. This is it. So if you have, we'll